My name is Dr. Story, and in this video I'm going to tell you how to tell the difference between whether you have a headache that is extremely serious that you need to go to the hospital for, or if you have what's called a cervicogenic headache, where the headache is actually coming from the structures in your neck. Now, I've been in practice for over 25 years. I'm going to give you realistic advice based on my experience and based on the scientific literature. Now, let's talk firstly about, do you have a serious problem that necessitates you going to the hospital right away? Symptoms such as slurred speech, eye trouble, vision disturbances, ringing in the ears, the worst headache you've ever had ever in your life. If you have a pulsating type of headache where you feel pressure, if there's been trauma, meaning I had a patient recently who fell down, was drinking of course, and fell down, hit his head on the tile of his kitchen. And he got up, dusted himself off, you know, he was inebriated, and then didn't think much of it, but started getting a headache, and the headache was getting worse. The headache was getting worse and worse. Finally went to the hospital. Well, he has a scar from the front of his head all the way back where they literally had to relieve the pressure because he developed a hematoma in his brain. That is an emergency situation. He could have been dead, or he could have been disabled for the rest of his life. So he got lucky, he knew what to do, and he went to the hospital. That's a situation where you should, for example, not see a chiropractor. But what if you have a chronic condition where you get headaches and they're pretty bad, and how do you know if they are coming from your neck? Here's how you know. Here's a good general way to know if it's coming from your neck. Number one, let's talk about if it's coming from the structures that are the joints of the neck. Now, a joint is where two bones come together and they slide upon one another to create movement. So you have a number of joints in your neck, and what happens is as you move, each individual vertebrae, and there's seven vertebrae in your neck, each individual vertebrae moves a little bit so that the total motion can be rather great. So for example, if I try to turn my head all the way to the right, each vertebrae should have some movement that creates that full movement of turning to the right. So a good test for you would be to see if turning to one side is equal to turning to the other side. Now, a couple things that you may notice, and keep watching this because I'm going to give you all the details of how I diagnose these things. If we use turning as the range of motion, that is primarily testing the upper cervical area, the occiput, the atlas, the axis bone, and C3. So as you turn, I'm actually testing the joints. If you have a discrepancy, meaning that there's a difference between side to side. So a good example would be, I could turn all the way this way with zero pain, but if I turn to the left, I only get about halfway. That's a clue that you have a cervicogenic problem, meaning that if you're getting headaches and you have a lack of motion of that upper neck, that means that those upper cervical vertebrae probably have a joint problem that's causing your headaches. Second, if you move in that direction, the direction of the limited range of motion, and it actually aggravates or causes your pain, that's a second clue that you're having a cervicogenic headache that would benefit from a specific adjustment to that area. Now, if it's subtle, what I'll do is I'll usually have the patient drop their chin to about 45 degrees and then have them rotate. And that will often test and bring up subtle differences of range of motion. So let me show you how that works. What you do is you drop your chin, and then you rotate to the left, and then you rotate to the right, and what you're looking for is a difference. Now, sometimes I have patients that will come in where I just have them rotate and there's clearly a difference. But after a number of adjustments, their body starts to change, it starts to adapt, they start to improve. And then to determine if there's still a limited range of motion, I will have them drop their chin and do that. And that's how we know if we're finished or not. So if a person has full range of motion on both sides with their chin dropped as well as looking straight ahead, then that essentially means that we're done adjusting them and they don't need any more adjustments to that area. Now, the second choice that you have in determining if it's a cervicogenic headache is the lower cervical spine. Now, how we test that is through extension and lateral bending. Let me show you how to do that. What you'll do is you'll first be looking straight ahead and you'll try to touch your ear to the opposite shoulder. Now, it's important to not raise your shoulder up, but to keep your shoulder down right here and just drop your head looking straight ahead, and then do the other side. If there's a discrepancy, very often you'll feel it in the lower part of the neck. This can also cause headaches as well, but usually the headaches are different. The headaches in the upper cervical will cause pain in the back, the sides, and the front, but the ones of the lower will usually cause just pain on one side, usually of the back and slightly behind the ear. So that's how you test it. Another test would be to extend the head backwards and then bend to the side. Again, just like in the beginning test that we did, it's more subtle. But if you have a problem with bending backwards and bending to the side, then it's the facet joints that are likely causing pain. Now, there's different types of pain, and this is the second thing. And if you've been watching the video so far, now I'm going to give you even more detail. What I just mentioned, and I showed you previously, was to find out if joints are causing your headaches and giving you cervicogenic pain. But now we're going to be able to determine if there are muscular components of your neck pain and your headaches. So now, these are the tests. If I drop the chin forward and slide the chin along my torso as if I'm trying to look underneath my shoulder or underneath my armpit, as if I'm doing that, if you get a pain on the opposite side, so if I bend to the left and you get pain right in your shoulder, right where I'm grabbing here, that is very often a trigger point from a muscle called the levator scapula. And of all the muscles in the neck, this is the single most common trigger point that I find in my office that contributes to headaches. And usually the pain will start right here in the shoulder and come up into the side of the head. Very, very uncomfortable. Trigger point therapy, which is what we do in our office, works extremely well. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave some links here in the corners. On this corner right here, I'm going to put down a video where I show how trigger points are treated and how you can treat the trigger points for that particular muscle of your neck. And then right here, I'm going to show a video of how to determine if you have neck pain versus shoulder pain and how to tell the difference.